Respected and esteemed guests in the Zoom room, and to those watching on YouTube or Facebook, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, or may the peace, mercy, and blessings of Allah be upon you all. My name is Asad Malik, and I'm going to be your host for today's event. I'd firstly like to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedules to attend today's event. We hope you enjoy the wonderful talks and presentations that have been lined up for today. Now, at such unprecedented and uncertain times, the greeting I mentioned earlier forms a timely reminder of what we should be striving for within our communities: peace and blessings. Naturally, the question that follows on from this would be asking of how to achieve this. The response to this poignantly forms the theme for today's event: love thy neighbor. Now, just before I proceed, I'd just like to introduce a few housekeeping rules. Firstly, can I please ask that all of our guests who have joined in the Zoom room to remain on mute until called upon? And secondly, we would like to encourage our guests who are joined in the Zoom room or on Facebook or YouTube to share any comments they have for any of the talks from the guest speakers or on the event themselves, or on the event itself, sorry. Whether that be even how bad I am as a host or brilliant. You know, everyone's got their own opinions. Now, regarding the actual proceedings itself, those of you who have attended our events in the past will be well aware of the importance placed on the Holy Quran. As such, it is tradition that we begin proceedings with recitation of the Holy Quran. May I please call on Mr. Hanan Mujib for recitation of the Arabic text.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واعبدوا الله ولا تشركوا به شيئا وبالوالدين إحسانا وبذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين والجار ذي القربى والجار الجنوب الصاحب بالجنب وابن السبيل وما ملكت أيمانكم إن الله لا يحب من كان مختالا فخورا.
So thank you again to Hanan Mujib for that beautiful recitation in the Arabic language. Can I now please call upon Abdul Fattah Chowdhury for English recitation of those verses?
Assalamu alaikum. I will now present the English translation of the verse that has just been recited before you. The recitation was of the chapter 4, verse 37, Surah An-Nisa. 4, verse 37, Surah An-Nisa. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, ever merciful. And worship Allah and associate naught with Him, and show kindness to parents and to the kindred, and orphans and the needy, and to the neighbor that is a kinsman, and the neighbor that is a stranger, and the companion by your side, and the wayfarer, and those whom your right hand possesses. Surely Allah loves not the proud and the boastful. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you again to Abdul Fatah Chowdhury for that recitation. For the keen ear of you, that that recitation would have rung quite prominently for today's event, and in respect to showing kindness to your neighbours. Now, one neighbour who's shown quite a great deal of kindness to myself when I first moved to Scotland was the next person I'm introducing, who is Muhammad Ahmed, who is the regional president for Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Scotland. So if I could please invite him to say a few words.
Thank you, Asad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. I hope and pray you are safe during these unprecedented times. First of all, on behalf of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Scotland, I would like to extend our condolence to Her Majesty, the Queen, as well as the royal family on the sad demise of His Royal Highness, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. They are all in our thoughts and prayers. I take this opportunity to welcome our respected speakers, guests, and viewers to this virtual Religious Founders Day on the theme, Love Thy Neighbor. In normal circumstances, we will have held this event at one of our venues, but due to current pandemic, we are gathered here virtually. In no specific order, I would like to welcome our speakers who will be speaking to us on the theme of this program during the course of the evening. Dr. Maureen Sear, Director, Interfaith Scotland, the Right Reverend Dr. Martin Fair, Moderator of the General Assembly of Church of Scotland, Ravinder Kaur Nijar, Sikh Representative, Scottish Religious Forum, Advisor to the Sikhs in Scotland, Rabbi Rubin, Senior Rabbi of the Jewish community in Scotland, Imam Rawah-ud-din Arif Khan, Missionary of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Glasgow, and finally, Mr. Mansoor Shah, Vice President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, UK. I extend my sincere thanks to all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule by joining us today. We look forward to learn from your wise words. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you to Mr. Muhammad Ahmed for joining us for those kind words, and just mentioning the comments that I mentioned coming through on Zoom. So we've got warm greetings from our two guest speakers, Ravinder Kaur Nijar and Dr. Maureen Sear, who've both sent their warmest greetings from their respective communities. And we've also got a message from, sorry, just lost my voice there for a second. The Lord Provost Philip Bratt, who says, peace, blessings and warm greetings to all, and thank you for the kind invite. Now, guys, just for those of you that are listening on Facebook or on YouTube, please continue to send your comments in, and we'll do our best to squeeze them in throughout as the proceedings go on. As for what is next up on the agenda, we have an introductory clip to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
Before we start the video, due to the limitations of our live stream, we apologize in advance if the video appears jumpy or low quality. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Established in 1889 in India by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, he claimed to be the awaited reformer of the latter days, the one awaited by all major world religions. In this day and age, the teachings followed by Ahmadi Muslims are imparted through His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmed, the Caliph and Supreme Head of the worldwide Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Within a century, the movement has reached the corners of the world and has been recognized and praised by the global community. Around the world, the community has established foundations for a constructive influence of Islam by developing social projects, educational institutes, health services, and the construction of mosques. In the UK, the community is continuing to grow as an integral part of British society, contributing in all walks of life. In Scotland, the community has branches in Edinburgh, Dundee, and Glasgow. The establishment of these branches provides a base from which the Ahmadiyya Muslim community can serve not only its members, but wider society as a whole.
ولا تنسوا الفضل بينكم إن الله بما تعملون بصير.
At a time when all eyes are on the roles Muslims play in society, there is one community that leads by example, rejecting extremism and working with the government to counteract radicalization. The founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, stated, "My desire, my wish, and my objective is serving humanity. It is my job, my faith, my inspiration, and my way of working." Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmed is the fifth and current head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Under his guidance, the community continues the work it is doing. When caliphate exists on the basis of justice, consideration for the rights of others, and an overall will for peace, as defined by the Quran and the Prophet of Islam, then caliphate has the ability to serve as a great force for good in this world. His followers, Ahmadi Muslims, number in the tens of millions, spread over 200 countries, making him the leader of the largest single group of Muslims in the world who follow one Imam. The Caliph has spoken at Capitol Hill, the British Parliament, the European Parliament, and has held court with dozens of world leaders, and is celebrated as a champion of peace by leaders across the world.
I will, God willing, always continue to carry out my task and my responsibilities of promoting peace, tolerance, justice, and compassion to the corners of the world. I will continue to tell all people that in order to be relieved of the pain and suffering that we face today, we must adopt true justice and equality.
Thank you for watching this introduction to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
May the peace of Allah be on you.
So thank you for the production to everyone that was involved in the production of that clip. As I've just seen that we've got a few people joining us, a few more people joining us. We have the Right Honourable Kirsten Oswald MP, who's the MP for East Redfernshire, as well as the Right Honourable Lord Provost Philip Bratt, who is the Lord Provost for the Glasgow City as well. So we're delighted you guys could join us today. With that all out of the way, it's time for us to introduce our first guest speaker for the evening. Now, before we proceed, I'd just like to firstly ask all of the guest speakers to just remember that we are working on a bit of a tight schedule today. So if everyone could just respect the allotted times that they've been given to speak, as well as the fact that there is a small change to the order of the guest speakers, in that Rabbi Moshi Rubin will be going first. Now, as I just mentioned, Rabbi Moshi Rubin is our first speaker for the evening, and he is the senior rabbi of the Giffnock Synagogue in Glasgow, which is the largest congregation in Scotland for Jewish people. Rabbi Rubin is originally from the US, but joined the Giffnock Synagogue in 1990, where he initially took up position as assistant rabbi in 1994, before being asked to take over the pulpit in 1999. So if I could ask Rabbi Rubin to just unmute and say a few words.
Let me begin by thanking Ahmed and the organizers for inviting me to share a few thoughts with you. I wish you success for this event and for all the many events you host. Also, as you begin your season of Ramadan, I wish you Ramadan Mubarak. The theme of today's Religious Founders event is on Love Thy Neighbor. My initial reaction to this request was, what an easy subject. It's going to be a walkover. However, if this theme was as easy as that, then the world would be a far better place and a safer place, and would not be suffering the ails of hate, racism, xenophobia, sectarianism, discrimination, and inequality. Let me share with you a statement from the Talmud, the central text of Rabbinic Judaism and the primary source of Jewish religious law and Jewish theology. The great first century Jewish scholar and leader, Rabbi Akiva, taught the verse in the Torah, the Bible, Ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha, which commands us to love your fellow person as you love yourself, is a fundamental principle in Jewish law and thought. The Torah, the Bible, is our guide to everything we do. Whether it is commandments related to the relationship between man and God, or commandments related to rules that are between man and man. To this, Rabbi Akiva states that the underpinning and fundamental rule related to these many commandments is Va'ahavta l're'acha kamocha. Love thy fellow man as oneself. The questions abound. Why is loving thy neighbor so fundamental that without its proper observance, we are lacking proper adherence to God's laws of the Torah? How can you make a command about something that is related to one's emotions? How can God ask of us to control our emotions? And one more question. Why is loving the other dependent on loving myself? Loving myself seems a contradiction to loving one's neighbor. But the truth is that it is only through a deeper understanding in loving oneself's clause in the commandment that we can truly and fully fulfill the commandment of loving thy neighbor. Rabbi Yisrael Meir Lau, past chief rabbi of Israel and president of Yad Vashem Museum, writes the following: in order to perform this commandment properly, a person must perfect his character. There can be no genuine kindness where jealousy rages, hatred festers, and the ego admires itself. These must be replaced with generosity, love, and empathy. In other words, I must become comfortable with myself. I must recognize my strengths and weaknesses. I must have faith in God that realizes that all that I need to live, survive, and thrive, God has gifted me. Sometimes through my own abilities and skills, and sometimes through the assistance of family, friends, neighbor, community, and the wider world. Once we come to this recognition, then loving thy neighbor is possible. as I don't feel threatened by them. On the contrary, I realize that actually loving my neighbor is fundamental to me being a successful citizen of the world. That is what Rabbi Akiva meant when he taught us that love thy neighbor is a fundamental principle in Jewish law. And I will add, in universal law. Let me conclude with a story that illustrates this point. There's a boutique bakery in Jerusalem known as Briesel's. The founder and owner was a very kind and generous man. One of his employees went out on his own and opened a bakery very nearby, taking away some of his clients, his customers. Mr. Briesel not only gave the new shop his blessing, but he actually gave business advice and helped the owner source the various machines required. When Mr. Briesel's family questioned him about this, not only giving a blessing, but actively assisting a competitor, he explained that actually he owes this new baker a thank you. God has determined already long ago how much he will earn, and this new baker won't change that. What he will do by opening his bakery nearby and having some customers going to the new bakery is actually giving Mr. Briesel more time to focus on other things. So the new baker deserves a thank you. That is someone who is completely comfortable within himself and feels no threat to love his fellow man. So in conclusion, we must learn how to be at ease within ourselves, be successful in loving thy neighbor. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for those very powerful words there from Rabbi Rubin. Some lovely story, some lovely quotes from scripture as well, talking about the importance of love thy neighbor from the Jewish perspective as well. Now, moving on to our next speaker, we have Dr. Maureen Sear, who is the director of Interfaith Scotland. Dr. Sear grew up in Elgin, and as a young teenager was inspired to join the Baha'i faith in the late 1970s. Dr. Sear discovered an interfaith dialogue group while at university and developed an immediate fascination in engaging with people from all faiths, and basically never looked back from that point. And in 2002, she accepted a role as Interfaith Development Officer for Scotland.
Oh, thank you so much. And I would like to begin by sincerely thanking you for inviting me to speak tonight on Religious Founders Day and on the theme of love. I was asked if I would sort of set the scene and say something about the world's religious founders. And I thought, gosh, that'll be really interesting to talk about. But I very quickly discovered that this would be a huge task and that I might offend someone by not including their religion or founder in my summary. So I ask those present to forgive me if I have not covered their faith or founder. Actually, there are many religions and many founders that have emerged in the history briefly, and then draw out what they've all said in common about loving thy neighbour. So I'm going to begin by looking at the Abrahamic Faiths, who trace their origins back to the key figure of Abraham. The four main Abrahamic religions include Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and more recently my own faith, the Baha'i faith. And the key figures and founders of religious systems, these religions are, have the key figures, and they're adhered to by millions of followers. So the founders of those religions include Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and Baha'u'llah. And running alongside the Abrahamic religions, and likewise inspiring millions of followers worldwide, are what can be known as the Dharmic Faith. These include Hinduism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, Jainism, and Sikhism. The oldest of all the world religions mentioned so far is Hinduism. And unlike other religions, Hinduism actually has no founder, but is instead a fusion of various beliefs. Most forms of Hinduism worship a single deity known as Brahman, but still recognize other gods and goddesses. Jainism also does not have a founder, but a key figure would be Mahavira, who is revered by Jains everywhere. So the founders of other Dharmic faiths, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, and Sikhism include Buddha, Zoroaster, and Guru Nanak. There have also existed life-enhancing philosophies such as Confucianism and Taoism, and of course indigenous and pagan religions whose main focus is seeing the energy, power and divinity in nature. And so having a founder is not seen as so important. So I'm back to the founders. The incredible founders mentioned above are viewed in different ways by the different communities of believers. Some believe in their founders an incarnation of God, and others as messengers of God, manifestations of God, prophets of God, as enlightened beings, enlightened teachers, revealers of the way, and as beings able to guide humanity to goodness, love, and mercy. They are also believed to have the power to establish systems and ways of life that are transformational for all of humankind. And of course, all of them have emphasized love of neighbor. And I'd like to share some beautiful quotes from these world religions and philosophies on the theme of love thy neighbor. I decided not to state which faith said which statement, so that it's a powerful indication that their inspiration is truly from the same source. If anyone wants to know the sources, just get in touch and I'll send you where the quotes have come from. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Be kind to your parents and near of kin, to orphans, the needy, the neighbor who is related to you, and the neighbor who is a stranger. And if thine eyes be turned towards justice, choose for thy neighbor that which thou choosest for thyself. Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Precious like jewels are the minds of all. To hurt them is not at all good. If thou desirest thy beloved, then hurt thou not anyone's heart. Regard your neighbour's gain as your own gain, and your neighbour's loss as your own loss. So, love thy neighbour. It's such a simple rule, and yet it is also deeply profound and holds whole worlds within it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sear, for those lovely words. I think we're pretty much all in agreement that those first two guest speakers really did set the tone there, and really demonstrating and explaining the fact that love thy neighbor isn't really an isolated idea expressed by a few. It's very, very shared. Sorry, I guess I should say common a lot amongst all religions. So it's lovely to hear those first two speakers. We have our first few comments coming in from Facebook. So we have our first comment from Jennifer Spells, who says, "Good evening to you all. I have visited the mosque in Morden in London on a similar occasion." So the mosque in Morden is one of the biggest mosques in Western Europe, I believe. Someone can correct me later on if I'm wrong, but yes, I'd like to just say, everyone that is listening on Facebook and YouTube, if you can continue to send your comments in, and I'll do my best to read them out as we're going along. As for what is next on the agenda, we have a short presentation by the National Outreach Department on the activities that will be undertaken in the holy month of Ramadan. And this will be done by Mr. Rahan Saeed.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. I want to thank you so much for welcoming me today, just to deliver a brief presentation. So much for welcoming me today, just to deliver a brief presentation about the activities of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat in welcoming you all, our dear neighbours, and we have some fantastic, let's say, campaigns that we want to share with you, and we hope that you will actually join us as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see somewhat of a presentation, that a very brief presentation that I'm just going to show you. So this is our big virtual iftar series of events, which we started due to lockdown last year. We usually in the past host all of our wonderful neighbours, friends, our mosques, and we share a meal with them. And due to lockdown and the situation on the ground, I know we're sort of slightly coming out of lockdown in a phased approach, but still there's still social distancing involved. So what we're doing is inviting our dear friends from all communities to join us. So what is a big virtual iftar? So it doesn't matter whether you're religious or not, whether you have faith or no faith at all, it's absolutely fine. We just want you to come and join in solidarity with us. And these are a series of online events, weekly events that we will broadcast live via YouTube Live. And there will be a range of different things that we will showcase, including live webinar talks, virtual tour of the largest mosque in Western Europe. Yes, you're right, Asad Malik, my friend, it's the largest mosque in Western Europe. There'll be live Q&A and some other campaigns which I'll talk you through. So the main website for our event is the Big Virtual Iftar, and the hashtags we're using are Big Virtual Iftar and National Fasting Challenge, and I'll tell you more about that. And also a scheme called the Share Iftar scheme too. So as you can see, we've had people in the past come along, from MPs to religious leaders, even the armed forces have joined us in providing addresses and talks, also some health benefits of fasting in terms of the talks that we cover. We also show a virtual tour of the largest mosque in Western Europe, which is the Beit al-Fudul Mosque Complex in Morden in London. We have interactive polls as well. So everyone out there on Facebook or even YouTube, you won't be just twiddling your thumbs. Hopefully we'll get you to sort of log into Slido, which is our interactive polling, and we'll be asking you questions. And just in terms of past talks and topics from last year, we had Lieutenant Commander Simeon Lowe from the Royal Navy, who joined us, who talked about real patriotism. And we believe, you know, actually serving your country is part of our faith. So that's very important to us as Muslims. And also how to battle addictions. We had a doctor, intensive care doctor from a COVID intensive care unit, who came and gave a speech as well. And also we had different MPs and members of the public come on as well. We had Jeremy Hunt and also Ed Davey and some others, and some actually shared in fasting with us as well. Right, and also one thing that's important here, which is faith and fasting. I know my colleagues here from other faiths, we do believe sincerely that it's through faith and fasting, it actually helps us to ignite our passion to serve each other and serve humanity. And so we had some, our last topics were on that as well. These are the actual dates of our upcoming events. And again, we welcome you and we encourage you to jump on our website and register for the events. It's absolutely free, and you can do that from the comfort of your own homes. So the first event is actually on the 14th of April, this Wednesday, the 1st of Ramadan, at 6:45 p.m. Also, additionally, what we're doing is we're going to be starting a national fasting challenge. And I just want to exit my screen here and quickly show you the actual Eventbrite fasting challenge page. And basically, this is an opportunity for everyone across the UK and even beyond to join in the challenge. And it's basically, there's two levels, a beginner level and advanced level. So beginner level is a 1 day, we're challenging you to have to come on board and fast for 1 day and see all the benefits you can have, the spiritual, physical, mental benefits you could possibly have as a takeaway. And in fact, we've had some sign-ups, many sign-ups already. And then there's an advanced level as well, which is actually fasting for the full 30 days. And we've had a fantastic person from the armed forces who said, well, I'm going to give it a go. And he's going to fast for 30 days. And I'm sure he's going to be on an absolutely different level at the end of it. And just some benefits of fasting. The spiritual benefits are there. We've got gratitude, empathy, understanding what it feels like going without food, but also connecting with your and finding your true purpose in life. And at the end of the day, we believe that it's through there's a fantastic verse of the Holy Quran, Allah bi zikrillahi tatmainul qulub, which means it's in the remembrance of God that hearts find comfort. And it's through this fantastic period, and a very challenging period, in fact, during COVID, that we found that actually for us as Muslims, certainly, and my other dear brothers and sisters here, that's where we find our comfort and our true purpose. But then again, we have the mental benefits, the physical benefits as well, which include actually many people actually get rid of addictions as well during Ramadan. Some actually stop smoking, which is a fantastic platform for using that to get rid of those type of addictions. But also it helps to reduce stress, improve self-awareness, realization, and of course the actual physical benefits are there as well. Improves sleep, detoxifies the body, and actually reduces blood pressure as well for anyone out there. But at the end of the day, we don't. There are rules around Ramadan and fasting, and what's really important, as outlined in the Quran, if you are unwell, if you're a child, if you're pregnant, and there are many other things that actually you're not actually allowed to fast if that is the case. So just going back to my presentation very quickly. I don't know what I'm doing, how I'm doing for time, but I'm near the end now anyway. So these are some other participants who took part, Lieutenant Commander Simeon Lowe, and we had a lady from the Royal Navy as well who took part in a fasting challenge last year. Moving on from the fasting challenge, this is a very powerful quotation of the Holy Prophet of Islam, may the peace and blessings be upon him. One who eats his fill while his neighbor is hungry by his side is not a believer. That is extremely powerful. So powerful, actually, that we can't call ourselves as true believers, true Muslims, if we neglect our neighbors. So in order to kind of enhance and project that, we're unveiling a new campaign during the blessed month of Ramadan, which is Share Iftar. So this is a campaign where we're encouraging our members to reach out to their neighbors, reach out to their friends, prepare a meal for them, invite them to take part in the fasting challenge, but also prepare a meal for them and actually make that meal for them, drop it around before the big virtual iftar session, and get them to join in the big virtual iftar, and then of course enjoy the meal and actually break the fast with us live. So it provides sort of a platform of unity, everyone coming together, sharing a meal together, and actually listening together and interacting together. And there's a quotation of the Holy Prophet, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, that food of one person is enough for two. And there are many other quotations where the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said that even you should increase the water in your soups if you have to, just to make sure there's enough for your neighbors. And this is the Big Virtual Iftar website, so www.bigvirtualiftar.co.uk, and you can go there and find out more about our different campaigns and how you can actually very simply register for those activities as well. So thank you very much for giving me some time to present this.
Perfect. Actually, bang on time from my friend Rahan Saeed. They're just like, thanks for that lovely presentation. We actually obviously hope you can, some of the audience members can join us for some of those events in the near future.
I'd be very grateful if you could also
for some of those events in the near future.
I'd be very grateful if you could also perhaps share in the live stream the actual website address so that members could maybe take a look as well.
Sure, that's something that we could definitely do. Yeah, if we could just get someone on sharing that link, that would be great. As for our next guest speaker, we have the Right Reverend Dr. Martin Sear, who is the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. Dr. Sear first served as minister of St Andrew's Parish Church in 1992, before being installed as moderator of the General Assembly in May 2020. So can I just ask Dr. Sear to say a few words?
Thank you. And might I begin by extending the very warmest wishes of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, both to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Scotland and to all the faith leaders, your communities represented here today. It's a great honour to be involved. And I have to say, during my year as moderator of the General Assembly, it's been a hugely enriching blessing to get to know better and to discover new friends, both within the different traditions of the Christian faith and beyond and across the other faith groups. So I'm delighted to be with you today. Rabbi Rubin said that it was a breeze to talk about love thy neighbour, and I agree. Earlier this afternoon, my wife asked me, so do you know what you're going to be saying this evening? And I said, yes, 5 minutes on love thy neighbour. I could do that with my eyes closed and my hands tied behind my back. But there's the problem. When something is so universally owned, and when something is so easy to say, you generally find it's harder to do. In fact, I want to say there's a direct correlation here. The easier it is to say, the harder it is to put it into practice. And it seems to me that faith without action is dead, as the letter to James says in the New Testament. So indeed, Maureen spoke about our founders, and for me, Jesus was asked, and what is the greatest commandment? Maureen quoted it earlier, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind. And the second great commandment, to love your neighbour as yourself. I've said it, there you go, easy as that. But putting it into practice. Some years ago, in the dead of winter, and there was a considerable fall of snow on the ground outside my church. On that particular Sunday morning, I had preached a sermon to my congregation on this very text, love thy neighbour. And at the end of the service, many people said to me, thank you for a wonderful word. Well, by the time everybody was left, I was closing up the door of my church, and there, sat on the doorstep, shivering cold with the lightest of jackets, was a young man. I now know him to go by the name of Jamie. At that time, he was about 17 years of age. He was and continues to struggle with drug addiction. At that point, he was sleeping rough. And there inside the church, I had just preached, love thy neighbour. And within moments, there was a neighbour sat at the door of my church. And I felt this enormous conviction, a sense of God saying to me, are you going to put into practice what you have just preached? And so my family and I, we took Jamie home that day and welcomed him to our dinner table. He was a guest and he was warmly welcomed as such. I continue to see him even now, and my church community continues to support him as best as we can. It won't do for us to be in our pulpits to say, love thy neighbour, unless we're going to find ways to prove that we mean it, such that the world will see it and experience it for themselves. Who is my neighbour? My neighbour is the person in need. And crucially, my neighbours, that group extends far beyond those who are like me. And this is why I'm privileged to be part of this gathering today, because the world makes a mistake when it assumes that neighbours are those who are like us in every respect. Going down that road, we find ourselves in small camps and ghettos. Jesus made it clear that our neighbours are those in need, whoever they are, whatever the background. And so those would be the principles I would want to enshrine today and encourage us all to adopt. That one, love thy neighbour is easy to say, but must be put into practice. And two, that we consider our neighbours to be all those who are in need, whether they be like us or entirely different from us. Thank you, Asad, and once more may I say what a privilege it has been to bring to you the greetings of the Church of Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fear, for that very powerful speech just given there. I did really that story about your quite well. And yes, again, thank you. And it's our honor to have hosted you for this. We've just got another comment coming through on Facebook again from Miss Jennifer Spells. She says, I was invited to the mosque in South London in my role as RE coordinator at South London Primary School. I had a wonderful meal and enjoyed listening and learning more. Many of our families were from the community and had were great supporters of our multi-faith school. I considered them as personal friends, sharing hospitality in their homes and women's house meetings. On one Ofsted, the inspector said to me that Martin Luther King would be thrilled to look out the window and see what he could see. Some very flattering words there, and thank you, Jennifer, for those kind words. As for our next speaker, we have a fellow Londoner for myself. We have Ravinder Kaur Nijjar. Now, Ravinder has worked in the interfaith field for over 25 years and is currently serving as a member of the Scottish Joint Community on Religious and Moral Education, representing the Sikh community.
Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. It is an honor and a privilege to be speaking to you today on religious founders. And I'm going to concentrate on Guru Nanak, the founder of the Sikh faith. But first, I would like to give you the Sikh greeting. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, and Assalamu Alaikum. Founders of religions have been sent on Guru Nanak, the founder of the Sikh faith. But first, I would like to give you the Sikh greeting. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, and Assalamu Alaikum. Founders of religions have been sent to this earth to put humanity on the right path from spiritual ignorance to enlightenment. The Sikh Dharm or religion began with the birth of its first Guru or Prophet in 1469, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Guru means road, but before doing so, he passed the Guruship onto the sacred scriptures of the Sikhs, the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the highest spiritual authority. So the Sikh Dharm is unique in that it developed over 239 years and has an eternal prophet. Guru Nanak Dev Ji was born at a time of great oppression, corruption and social injustices. The poor were suffering at the hands of the state and religious authorities. The practice of religion itself had been corrupted with blind rituals and hypocrisy. There was definitely no concept of love thy neighbor. Through the Guru's teachings, an unprecedented spiritual, and social regeneration took place. Guru Nanak Dev Ji's central message was to recognize the oneness of God. Although God's creation is diverse, we all have different ways of perceiving God. His theology was simple, that all were created equal by the one true creator, and no religion could claim monopoly on God. Anyone could aspire to have union with God, regardless of their caste, religion, or gender. To earn that grace, all could do good deeds and live an honest life in true service. No one was precluded from his grace. The Guru wanted to remove the man-created boundaries which prevented humanity from realizing its true potential by seeing the light of God in all. And I quote, "Sab mein jyot, jyot hai soi, tisse chanan, sab mein chanan hoi." In all creation dwells the divine light. It is the light of the Creator himself. For Guru Nanak Dev Ji, God not only resided in every corner of the universe, but more importantly, in every life form. The human form was at the apex of creation, with the responsibility to look after all other lower life forms. We are all created from the same elements and with the light of the one God shining from within us, a soul which has no gender, no caste, color, or creed. Hence, how can anyone be called less than another, or good or bad? And to quote from the sixth scripture, "Avalala noor paya, kudrat ke sab bande, ek noor te sab jag upjya, kaun pale ko mande." First, God created the light. By his creative power, he made all people. From the one light, the entire universe welled up. So how can we call some good and others bad? Oh, people, do not be misled by ignorance and doubt. Creation embodies the Creator, and the Creator pervades in the creation. The Creator is omnipresent in everyone and everything. So as a Sikh, if the divine light is in everyone, then how can I not love my neighbor? It is my actions that will determine how I am seen by others and God as to whether I love my neighbor or not. It is actions and not just mere words that we have to focus on, just like Martin said. If God's divine light is present in all, then as a society, we have to look at how we treat women. Guru Nanak Dev Ji removed the centuries-old boundaries and elevated the status of women in society, religion, and in the family setting. Women were then, centuries ago, and probably even now as well in parts of the world, viewed as a possession, without individual rights, to be kept in the house doing menial tasks, without any socio-political role to play. Guru Nanak raised women's status to the level of being next to God. He said, without womankind, there would be no birth of new life. Even kings, emperors, and saints were born from women. Women should have the equal opportunity and even obligation to follow a righteous path, meditate, serve society, fight injustice and oppression. To conclude, as Sikhs, we are informed in our morning prayer that our planet is a dharamsal, a sacred place of worship, where human beings have been sent to gather the seeds of spirituality. As all life forms on this earth are connected by the divine light, then we must treat everyone equally with dignity, respect, and love. If we do not do this, then we are not abiding by God's will. So we need to develop our spiritual eyes through prayer and service and see God's light in all and love our neighbors and be a shining example to future generations. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you, Ravinda, for again a lovely speech from one of our guest speakers. Just wanted to acknowledge a few more people who have just joined us in the Zoom room. We have just got Ephraim Borowski, who's just joined us, who is the director of the Scottish Council of Jewish Communities. And we've also got Chief Josephine Obo MacLeod, who is a respected senior chief from Nigeria as well, who's just joined us in the room, as well as Imam Dawood Qureshi Ahmed, who is a missionary for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Scotland as well. Now, next on the agenda, we will have a presentation on some of the humanitarian activities being done in the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Scotland by Moaz Ahmed.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. We don't know what the historians will say about the year 2020, but we know what we've lived through. It was a year of dramatic changes, a pandemic that has upended our understanding of the world today. Our vocabulary has changed too. Words like quarantine and lockdown went from the idiomatic to the everyday. While citizens of every country were getting sick day by day, it has even altered how our children and students are being educated. It has forced nations into debt as they cope with the situation. Throughout this chaotic, exhausting, and exhilarating year, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Scotland has been a haven, a port in the storm during this pandemic. I would present a brief report on the work our community has actively been involved with, especially since the lockdown in March 2020. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Scotland has been working tirelessly each week to reach out to those people who are homeless and vulnerable by providing more than 8,000 cooked meals and over 10,000 food items to various homeless shelters and food banks. And more recently, we have started a campaign to deliver healthy snacks to the hard-working volunteers and NHS staff working at various vaccination centres throughout Scotland, and even reaching out to our heroes at the Scottish Fire Services. Across the M8, Seagull House and James Bank homeless shelters in Dunfermline, Cunningham House in Edinburgh, and Kirkcaldy Food Bank have been regular in receiving food donations throughout the pandemic from our members in Edinburgh. Even in Dundee, our local Muslim youth have been donating to Dundee Food Bank and King's Cross Hospital in Dundee. In Glasgow, we have provided BJ O'Mara, Glasgow Night Shelter, and Help for the Homeless hot meals. These are simple cooked foods such as nutritious turka dal with rice and chicken curry with rice. Later in December 2020, a cheap and easy cooking campaign was launched by the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community UK. The initiative by the community was to show how tasty, healthy meals can be cooked at home for as little as 9 pence per serving. The campaign features a recipe booklet on how to make these dishes quickly, easily, and cheaply, with no compromise on taste. The feedback for the campaign has been very positive, and the booklet can be accessed from the website loveforallhatredfornone.org. Another campaign launched by the community in April 2020 was to make face masks that could be distributed to those facing a shortage few months into the pandemic. The Ahmadiyya Women's Auxiliary were then tasked with this responsibility to teach the young and older members of the community the process and quickly provided over 2,000 face masks. These were delivered to several homeless shelters across Glasgow, Edinburgh and Dundee, as well as to the NHS staff. Recently, the Ahmadiyya youth in Glasgow teamed up with the volunteer community gardening group York Hill Green Spaces. The group improves, maintains green spaces in the urban area of York Hill, Glasgow, and our youth assisted with cleaning up litter around the surrounding areas near our local Bethel Rahman Mosque. All these activities have continued into the year 2021, flying the banner of love for all, hatred for none. Ahmadi Muslims are distinguished by promoting of active citizenship, being loyal to Britain and serving mankind. And as Ahmadi Muslims, it becomes our responsibility to help those in need. So providing various homeless shelters is just a small part our community can play an active role in the society we live in. I would like to also mention that behind every cooked meal is the successful hand of members from our Women's Auxiliary. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community, the head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, His Holiness Mirza Masroor Ahmed, may God be his helper, said, "Our motivation and our desire to serve others is driven entirely by the teachings of Islam." I would like to now present a short brief on behalf of the Ahmadiyya Elders Association in Scotland. The Masroor I Institute in Burkina Faso, West Africa. His Holiness Mirza Masroor Ahmed, may God be his helper, had a vision to establish an eye institute in Burkina Faso. This task was assigned to Ansarullah UK, an auxiliary organization of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community for men of the age of 40 and over, to build and run an eye hospital in West Africa. In Burkina Faso, the prevalence of blindness is estimated at 2% of the population. According to the rapid survey of avoidable blindness conducted in 2011, 8% of people over 50 are affected by blindness, and 17% live in low vision. Under the charity Walk for Peace, a state-of-the-art teaching eye hospital is now being built at the cost of £1 million, and all building construction work has been completed and equipment installation work is now underway. Patients will be welcome from anywhere within the region, and we aim to provide the best service. We will be providing free treatment for those patients who may not have the funds required for their operation. The Ahmadiyya Muslim Elders Association in Scotland was given a target of £5,000, and by the grace of God Almighty, our members have oversubscribed and pledged over £7,000. Similarly, our past president, Mr. Abid, with the help of the Rotary Club Kirkintilloch, has also raised £5,450 for this noble cause. Opening this facility is expected in the next few months. As the responsibility of running this hospital is on our shoulders, we still need regular financial support from our donors. May God grant this. Amen.
So thank you to Mr. Moaz Ahmed for that lovely presentation. There's, as you can see, there's quite a lot being done by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Scotland with respect to humanitarian activities. So that's all great to see. Moving on to our next speaker for the evening, we have Imam Rawah-ud-din Arif Khan, who is a missionary for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Glasgow. Now, Mr. Khan was born and raised in Frankfurt am Main and first came to the UK for his studies before serving as the Imam in Waltham Forest in East London. He moved to Scotland in late last year and is now serving as the Imam for the Beit al-Rahman Mosque in Glasgow.
Jazakumullah Asad, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I would first of all like to thank all of you who have taken out their valuable time to join this important event where we share the beauties of our respective religions and faiths. It is our pleasure to have you with us. It is also my religious duty to be grateful for and to thank all those who joined us today. The Holy Prophet of Islam is not grateful to his fellow human beings, cannot be grateful to his Creator. So once again, I'd like to say that we are very grateful for your virtual presence today. I would also like to take this opportunity to make it clear that whilst it is frequently alleged that Muslims do not respect other religions or their religious figures, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, based upon the teachings of the Holy Quran, Muslims believe that prophets of God were sent to all nations in order to guide and reform the people of those regions. We firmly believe in the truth of all the prophets and believe they were sent to draw mankind towards God Almighty and to teach morality and to establish universal human values such as freedom of conscience, justice, and human sympathy. Given this, how could it be possible for us to disrespect or dishonor other religions or their followers? As an Ahmadi Muslim, I have love for Prophet Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, and all other prophets of God. May peace be upon them all. I would also like to make it clear that as an Ahmadi Muslim, love for humanity is a vital part of our faith, which is beautifully portrayed in our motto, love for all, hatred for none. We are commemorating this day as a religious Founders' Day. Thus, I have extended the invitation to this event to people of all faiths and no faith alike, as we all have something in common, the love for humanity. We have heard many beautiful and inspiring speeches on today's theme of Love Thy Neighbor. Thank you all for sharing the beauty of your faith. I would also like to present the Islamic concept on neighborly love. But before I do, I should also clarify that the definition of a neighbor in Islam is extremely vast. It not only includes people who live nearby, but also includes people who live further afield, a person's travel companions, work colleagues, subordinates, and many others besides. In effect, the Holy Quran has declared that all the people living in a Muslim's town or city are their neighbors. As you have heard from the recitation of the Holy Quran, Islam lays great emphasis on fulfilling the rights to one's neighbor. In the verse of the Holy Quran, it says, show kindness to the neighbor that is kinsman. It also means the neighbor that lives near and is kindly. Then it mentions to show kindness to the neighbor that is a stranger, which may also mean a neighbor living at a distant place and is not kindly. The teaching of the Holy Quran shows kindness to everyone, whether he is kind towards you or not. This is how you can create peace, love, and harmony in the society. And this also means that all the people residing in your vicinity, town or city, or even country are your neighbors. Therefore, give them their due rights. No enmity should crop up in anybody's mind. This is how you can spread peace, love, and harmony in your surroundings. At the end, God reminds us and gives us this commandment that if you do not behave in this manner and carry out your responsibility in this regard, you are a proud and boastful person. Remember that Allah does not love arrogant and boastful people. This is the beautiful teaching for creating peace. Here, I would also like to quote a few traditions or sayings of the Holy Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in which we shall see how emphatically he asked his followers to give the rights due to one's neighbors. One tradition of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, "By Allah, he does not believe. By Allah, he does not believe. By Allah, he does not believe." He was asked, "Who does not believe?" He replied, "He whose neighbor is not secure against his mischief." See how clearly he has stated that a person is a non-believer if he causes any mischief to his neighbor. Then another tradition says, "He who believes in Allah and the last day must not put his neighbor to inconvenience. He who believes in Allah and the last day must honor his guest. And he who believes in Allah and the last day must speak beneficently or keep quiet." These are the teachings given to us by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The Holy Prophet always treated his neighbors with extreme kindness and consideration. He used to say that the angel Gabriel, peace be upon him, had emphasized considerations towards one's neighbors so often that he sometimes began to think that a neighbor would perhaps be included among the prescribed heirs. At another occasion, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Help your neighbor if he seeks help. Give him a loan if he asks for a loan. Give him relief if he is needy. Nurse him if he falls ill. Follow his coffin if he dies. Cheer him if he meets any good. Sympathize with him if any calamity befalls him. Raise not your building so as to deprive him of air without his permission, and also harass him not." This beautiful teaching extends from door to communities, nations, and countries to cohere community into a family with respect, care, and love, creating an environment of well-being, development, peace, and prosperity for all. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is reported to have said, "One whose neighbor is not safe at his hands shall not enter paradise." My dear and esteemed guests, these are the teachings in Islam regarding the love to one's neighbor. I hope I could give you a better understanding of Islam today. I have certainly learned and gained a lot from our guests. Thank you for that, and thank you for listening to me. May Allah bless you all and keep you all safe. Ameen. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thanks to Imam Khan for presenting that lovely speech there. I think the words "love for all, hatred for none" really do resonate again with the message for today's event in Love Thy Neighbor. And now, moving on to our final speaker for the evening, I would like to invite Mr. Mansoor Shah, who is the Vice President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in the UK, to say a few words.
Mansoor Sahab, you're mute.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Alaikum salam. Yeah, we can hear you now, yes.
I'm very sorry. I'm not very technical on many of these things. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon all of you. Many thanks to all the speakers who have contributed to today's discussion on love neighbor. Love thy neighbor is a common teaching shared by almost all religions of the world. But just has been highlighted by our young speaker just now, it casts a very wide net, for a neighbor. So a neighbor includes your fellow passenger on a bus. It includes your fellow passenger on an aircraft. It also includes your boss, your servants, and those who are your assistants. It includes the person who is next door to you and a few doors away from you. It includes many other people with whom you communicate in any form whatsoever. So given this communicate in any form whatsoever. So given this teaching, how can any so-called Muslim think of blowing up to smithereens, anybody with whom he is traveling on an aircraft? This is totally against the teachings of Islam. These so-called Muslims, who are blowing up people and giving Islam a very bad name, are not based on religion, but are doing their own vested interests for no purpose whatsoever. So please bear this in mind when we think of those people who are causing Islam a very bad name. Secondly, the word love is sometimes used in a very base connotation. Love, according to me and according to the teachings of Islam, is to have the same sort of love that a mother has for its baby. Just as a mother, cares, picks up the baby each time the baby hurts itself, and then caresses and, smooths it. In the same way, a person should be having the same sort of feeling, for its fellow human beings. You should not think about any kind of that you will be able not to be able to deal with your neighbor in an improper manner. Second, and finally, you should remember that the present COVID-19 has taught us, that life is very finite. It can end at any one time. We must invest for future life in a manner so that we are discharging the rights which are owed to God and the rights which are owed to our fellow human beings. Not only just our fellow human beings, the rights that we owe to the entire environment. So we have got to be careful about everything and not cause any harm to any of these things, any harm to any of God's creation. Then we've got to remember also that were we to act on these beautiful teachings, the broad principles, the two broad principles that I've highlighted, we would develop a nation, that is building a society in which we march forward in the direction of civilization. If you look at civilization, all the time it has been geared towards greater communication amongst ourselves. Man was a gregarious animal and has now moved away from living in a cave and found, that there was safety in numbers and living together and looking after each other. So this same thing has got to continue to move forward and not move backwards. But yet we see in the world today that there are people, who are building walls rather than building bridges amongst communities. They're building animosities amongst communities and hatred. And this has got no place whatsoever in society. If we wish to make a cohesive society, we've got to get over these things, and move away from people who cause us any kind of disruption. Your neighbor is a person, who you should not get annoyed with your neighbor just because he's occupied a few inches of your parking space. You should not get annoyed with somebody who's driving a car and he suddenly pulled up in front of you and you think he's driving badly and you start cursing him left, right and center and start raising fingers here and there. That is no way of treating human beings. Respect everybody as a human being and think of them, as proper citizens of this world. we start treating everybody like this, we will be doing a great service to ourselves. Finally, I address members of my community in Scotland. You live amongst the Scottish people, and if you were to, during this month of Ramadan, which is going to come in a few days' time, to take a few pots to your neighbors, they love the food that you cook. And I'm sure, if you take a few pots to your neighbor, when they see your smiling face, a smile will burst open upon their faces as well. And will come and thank you, and you'll win many hearts. And that is the way, that we got to move. We got to love our people, those who are near us, and those who spread the message of good humanity. And may God enable us to be good, faithful human beings and listen to the teachings of all the faiths which are on the subject. So with that, Ron, I end my short address to you, and I hope that all of you have benefited from today's participation in Love Thy Neighbor. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Shah, for that lovely presentation. Just got a few comments coming in. We've firstly got one from MP Kirsten Oswald, who says, "Many thanks for this inspiring and thought-provoking event. I'm very glad to have heard all the important speeches about the importance of loving one's neighbor. That focus has shone through everything which has been said." And we've also got a comment from Ravinder, which says, "Thank you to the organizers for an inspiring event. True religion is about serving humanity, and you are all doing that with love and commitment." So thank you to you both for those lovely words. I would obviously, this particular event, obviously given the current circumstances, is a virtual event, but we hope for the future that these events can become real, I guess you could say. We can meet face to face, and we can obviously discuss what we've been talking about today in more face to face and in much greater depth. And on that note, I'd also like to invite everyone to join us in the events that we've got coming up in the holy month of Ramadan, including the big iftaris that will be happening, as well as the Ramadan challenge. I'd love to see a few of you guys getting involved in fasting during this month as well. So again, thank you to all of the guest speakers that were able to join us today, as well as our guests that have joined us on in the Zoom room, on YouTube and on Facebook. And yeah, we hope to see you all again soon.
Just before you end, I'm very sorry. I've got to end this meeting we always end our meeting with silent prayers. So we, in Scotland, I've attended these meetings, and we share a meal after this one. But unfortunately, we are unable to share food with you, but please remember that we shall remember you in our minds at all times. Would you please join me in silent prayers? We raise our hands. You can join in any manner that you like. Please join me in silent prayers. Ameen. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that concludes our meeting. So thank you again for everyone that joined.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.